And I used to measure the days away from when we were going public by the amount of shampoo in my shampoo bottle. I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful to live here, coming from where I came from. You feel like fucking shit when your stock is trading at $56 or 56 cents per share. Step one is to write your goals down.
Guys, welcome back to Failure. As they say, success has many fathers and failure has none. And welcome to Failure's father. We appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you for helping to make us one of the top podcasts. We're very proud of Chris and I are very proud of just kind of hoping that we've helped people, and we appreciate your comments. And we're really lucky today that we have a very special guest. Someone whose accomplishments are tremendous in the business world. And hopefully his stories of failure, obviously, because as we talked about, there is no success without failing over and over, will resonate with you. And to the extent you guys have questions, comments, please drop them in. So I'd like to introduce Randall Kaplan, who's not only he's a friend and an associate, and we've known each other many years. It happens to be a neighbor. So Randall was the founder, or he's a serial entrepreneur, but he was one of the founders of Akamai, which, as we all know, more or less is part of the backbone of the internet. If you guys don't know, went public in 1999. It was, I think, one of the biggest IPOs that year.
It was, yeah.
And one of the bigger tech IPOs still to date. And founded Sandy, which is a database of basically compiling the best beaches in the world for, I think you said it's a $50 billion a year travel industry.
$5 trillion a year beach tourism business.
I missed a few zeros in there. Math today is not my strong suit, apparently. $5 trillion travel industry.
Beach tourism industry.
It's incredible. I didn't even $5 trillion in beach tourism.
Because people are going on vacation.
People go on vacation. And has an investment vehicle that called Jump, and a very successful podcast. So it really just spans so much, and it goes on and on. Real estate and a lot of charity work. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks
pleasure
for
to have
me.
you. Yeah,
Great
thanks
to
for being on.
Again.
Great to see you too. And my parents say hi, by the way.
Tell them I said, I saw them at Yom Kippur Rosh Hashanah services last year.
I was with them.
They were.
Oh, you must have gone in the morning. I didn't go in the morning.
They were.
Sorry, Rabbi.
No, I think it was the. Hey, Steve Leader, what's up, my man? I know Steve was on your show. One of the greatest guys ever.
He's the best.
One of the greatest guys ever. No,
Yes.
I saw them. It was. It would have been the night service. It would have been the 5 o'clock service.
So I went to the 5 o'clock service. I just didn't go to the morning service.
Okay, same.
Yeah,
I saw them. They said they moved to Florida.
they did.
Yeah.
They built their dream house around their art. You know them and their art.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
we call it the museum. But anyway, so jumping right in. Obviously, I mean, going back, I'm going to actually do something we normally don't do. We kind of wait till later on to do this. But I think, given the tremendous amount of success you've had, and that you've gone through many iterations of business, as you said, serial entrepreneur, you probably have had, I would imagine, your share of failures as well.
Way more failures than wins, by the way. Not even close.
And that's, I think, what the world doesn't understand in business, right? Because they see this Instagram world of just everything's, just works. And that's what we're trying to kind of bring across with this show is, when you look at the NBA,
right.
Chris coaches the best of the best, the win rate is 30%, meaning they miss the best of the best, miss 70% of their shots, which is failing 70% of the time. And that's
like venture capital.
Just like venture capital.
Same thing.
What's really funny in our society, it's like you fail once and we have trolls and we have critics and we have, and what the purpose of doing this for us is the world to not judge themselves that, oh, I failed, I'm going to give up, or I'm not, I must have done something wrong, because you're never going to be successful without failing and trying and learning your lesson. So maybe we just go right into what's the first big failure you remember in your life?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy. I was bullied as a kid. I stuttered. I used to come home from school crying every day, and kids would make fun of me. I'd sit in the corner. I didn't have any friends. Didn't know how to make friends
It's
either.
tough.
But it was brutal. It was mentally scarring. Bullying then was a thing that no one, they
Stop.
cared, but it wasn't like today. Today you get kicked out of school.
Yeah.
Back then, it's like, oh, don't do that.
Right.
But
Barely.
they still did it.
They
Yeah,
kinda-
they still did it. And I remember just one day just saying to my mom, I really don't want to go to school anymore. It's not fun. It's mental torture every day.
How old were you?
I think first time I stuttered, I was 2.5, just when you learn to speak.
Yep.
And you realize you're not like all the other kids, and you go there and you can't get the words out. You're afraid to go to restaurants. You're afraid to introduce yourself. I mean, you can't order food in a restaurant. And so it was tough.
Did you experience anxiety early on?
Oh my God, anxiety, tremendous anxiety. We didn't know what it was back then
didn't.
either. It's
We
just
talked
like,
about. We
no one talked about
Nobody
anxiety. I mean,
talks
as a
about it.
10-year-old back then, no one talked about anxiety. These kids were making fun of you, and your mom's telling you it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Just
You
get
know, you'll go in, one day
Yeah,
you're not going to be that kid anymore.
but it's real.
So-
And it's real. And, you're at 10 years old, 14 years old, 16 years old. It's not that day yet,
Absolutely.
so it's daily living. And it was tough. Very
So
tough.
I empathize with you on that. We did a whole show on anxiety. I don't know if you saw it, but I was diagnosed with anxiety disease when I was about 13. But it took three psychologists
Yeah.
because nobody had, anxiety disease wasn't a thing. Like
Yeah.
you just didn't have it.
Right.
And even my dad, who, he's a very smart but tough guy, was just like, it's not a thing. There's no anxiety disease. And I had it severely. Same. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to, and it's really hard.
I don't know that I could identify it like that. I would say it was also fear. You're walking into basically just a toxic environment where you walk in and you were that kid that was going to get bullied. So it was anxiety, but it was more
Fear.
just fear. I don't know another way to describe it. I don't want to go. I know what's going to happen today.
How'd you cope? So you obviously went, but how'd
Yeah, I
you
went
do
to
it?
school.
How did you cope? Like
I would sit by myself in class. I'd sit by
Yep.
myself in recess.
Yep.
I was the last one picked for kickball. And it was hard.
did that carry through to junior high and high school?
Yeah, junior high, as I became older, it changed a little bit, but it's still, I was working on my speech. I was going to speech therapy. I had homework every day,
Yeah.
learning how to speak. I went with my speech therapist to McDonald's, to the drive-through window. We'd practice.
Just ordering. Yeah.
Can I please have a Big Mac? That was a huge accomplishment back then.
Wow.
And it was like that. And I went to speech therapy 2 days a week. I practiced 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day when I got home, reading, learning a new way to speak. And you talk about failure and what you learn from that. You learn a lot of hard work and what it takes to get past something that is debilitating.
Right.
That's
Because-
very debilitating.
Joe Biden stutters,
Yeah.
right? And not like I used to. I know his problem used to be worse.
Yep.
And he's the president, and it
It
is what it is. But
what it
I
is.
still see people who can't speak.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how you can communicate effectively, which is an ingredient of success in our careers, if you have trouble communicating with people. And stutterers, they may work on a word for 10 seconds, and that's an eternity for the person speaking,
Mhm.
and even more so for the person looking and receiving it, because they don't know how to act.
You took me back. Yeah, you just took me back to a basketball player. I don't want to name his name, but everybody knew he's a champion also. And, they do the interviews. He played very well right after the game on the court. And he stuttered. And, I would feel for him. I would wait because you would want to see him get through the interview properly. And so you just made me think about him. It just popped in my head. I could see him doing the interview right after the game. And I can imagine how much fear he felt immediately.
More fear of the interview than the game.
Exactly.
I mean, Bo Jackson stuttered. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's right.
Remember
You're right. He
after the
did.
game.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
remember in English class, Gus Seeger, my English teacher, I don't know if it was junior year or not, took me aside and says, "You don't have to give your speech if you don't want to."
Wow.
And I thought, gosh, that hurts. But I
Relieved.
had so much anxiety about the speech.
Yep.
All the jocks were in my class.
Yeah.
And I said, fuck it, I'm giving the speech. And I did it. And I wasn't going to back down, but it hurts to even be asked.
Well, you felt the fear.
So we call it feel the fear and do it anyway. So this came from one of our discussions where I was talking about when I was 14, the only piece of literature or book that any psychologist, psychiatrist had written about anxiety disease was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And my mom and dad read the book because they're trying to understand, what I was going through.
Yeah.
And that has kind of become our motto in general on the show, which is feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
So was that, that's like traumatic, obviously, and defines pretty much your entire life. So, when you said mine's is easy, yours is definitely like obviously your childhood, you had to overcome a massive obstacle
daily.
Daily, hourly, monthly, and it sounds like, and it was always something that you had to think about because we use communication for everything, right?
I was terrified. Don't call on me in class, right? Please don't call on me.
So you were just living in fear.
Heart is just beating out of your chest.
When do you? Well, I guess a couple questions is, do you think that the fact that you went through this challenge through your whole childhood actually prepared you more for the challenges that you then would face in business? Because probably there was no business challenge you could face that was as fearful as what you had to go through as a child.
A million times, right? You've been through emotional hell. A lot of business, there's the methodology of doing a deal. There's the tangibles of doing a deal, whether it makes sense or not. And then there's the intangibles of the deal, which, as you know from being in business, both you guys, it's a roller coaster sometimes, right? It's like, oh, you got this thing closed, it fell apart at the last minute, you want to put it together. You spend $50 on legal due diligence.
$50.
Whatever.
I want to know your lawyer.
$100,000.
Can I get a referral?
But yeah, it's. I think the experience of going through something negative and traumatic as a kid definitely influences and shapes your future, not only in terms of motivation and drive, but in terms of how to deal with certain situations that are stressful that maybe would be more stressful to someone else who hadn't been through that. Like if I can get through this,
you can get through that.
I hopefully can get through that. And if I can, I'm definitely better prepared for that.
See,
maybe
the kids that are listening now, that had that same issue of stuttering or some type of learning disability
or any emotional hard time,
it could shape your character, and you can see it because of where you are now. That failure that you went through at that time has steadily built your resilience.
Yeah. I don't think of it as a failure either. And I know that's part of the show, by the way, but I never, people
How do you look at it?
I look at it as an important ingredient of my development emotionally, physically, and mental fortitude. And part of the drive I have isn't to prove to people that I'm not retarded, which people used to call me.
Absolutely.
It's to prove to myself that I can get through those obstacles. I'm going to prove it to myself that I wasn't any of those things, and I was going to achieve the goals that I was born with, having nothing to do with my speech problem. But the combination definitely wasn't a failure. It was just, hey, this is me. This is who I am. It's an ingredient, and it's just a roadblock.
So it's interesting because that's why we use the word failure, is actually to show that the only failure is not getting back up.
Yeah.
And so we use it to make it, because it's so easy to be like, oh, that guy's a failure, that guy's a loser, that guy, his business did this, he didn't make that shot, he whatever. And we, although we use failure, we use it to show like there is no failure unless you don't try,
right,
or you give up. And we use "Man in the Arena" is our main quote, right, which is like, the only failing is not trying, as Churchill, says, is, like, it's the person on the sidelines who's a critic. They're actually the only ones that really fail, because if you've tried, as long as you gave it your all, you haven't failed. And it's interesting. The reason I asked that is because, growing up myself with anxiety disease, and people always ask me, like, I'll go give a speech in front of whatever, 50,000 people. And then I remember when I was going through the chapter 11, sitting down with yelling at Carl Icahn because he's yelling at me.
Yeah.
People are like, how are you yelling at Carl Icahn? Like, aren't you nervous? I'm like, and I thought about it, and I was like, it's really interesting, because I just kind of stepped, I started as you did, young in business in my 20s, and I'm sitting with pretty big players, and people are always like, how do you, and I, now that I look back, I think having to face this fear every single day from about 13 all the way, really, I mean, still to this day, it doesn't just go away, but like, I'd say in my mid 20s, when I really kind of understood what anxiety was, helped me, like, I just said on an earlier show, which is me walking out of the house was just as hard as me walking onto a stage with 50,000 people. And I realized it was just as hard as me walking into Carl Icahn's office, and so I imagine you going through the daily, I'll call it trials and tribulations of being a kid, which kids are unforgiving and mean. And I went through myself, and, pick on you and say whatever. And having this fear probably gave you this tremendous fortitude, that you carried forward into business life. And as you said, eventually proving it to yourself that you could do something.
For sure. I mean, just like in business, you remember everyone that helped you when you had nothing, every couch you slept on when you had no money, everybody that cooked a meal for you when $20 was a big deal and you didn't have it to go out. But I also remember every single person who treated me right and stuck up for me. And there were only a handful, one in particular, Mike Young. And so it's, you remember all those things. And I think when our company went public, I really didn't like the spotlight, but people knew. The main business reporter in Detroit, where I'm from, Jerome Levin, wrote this piece. And Jerome was the Detroit Free Press, is the biggest newspaper. He's the biggest writer. I read him growing up, and he wrote this piece that this kid from Detroit, who was raised mostly by a single mother, had hit it big in Silicon Valley. And his, our company at that point was something worth $35 billion, something crazy.
I remember,
And people knew. And it was interesting to go back for reunions and see some of those people who were making fun of me, and they weren't making fun of me anymore.
Drake has a line, and we can't play it.
Yep.
But he has a line that he goes in and says that right there. He was like, I should go back to my class reunion, but it make everybody have to go through security clearance. Just to see the look on their faces.
Yeah. You know what?
Just
to
get
now?
in.
What they're doing now is they're bragging. Drake was my classmate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I was friends with Drake back then when you were actually the guy making fun of him back then.
So you'll laugh at this. You'll appreciate this. So I think it was my, it was my 15-year high school reunion. And I think it was my 15. And I hadn't really, I have a couple people I stayed in touch with in high school, but by the time I was in 9th grade, my friends were already in college. And so they had been seniors when I was in, I think, 8th grade. And I think I had maybe 2 or 3 friends in the actual high school that I'd call friends, right? And when I went to my reunion, I remember I was actually super nervous to go to a reunion. I'm super successful at the time. I'm on top of the world. I'm, literally, Forbes and Fortune and front page, everything. And I'm really nervous. And I remember they play like a class video, of like the things that are class, it's past and current. And I'm not joking, 80% of the video was on my company Relativity at the time, and like movies and and they pulled these clips, and I guess they'd called my office, and, and I'm like, because there's only like 85 kids in our class, and so it was small. And
At Brentwood.
Yeah,
my kids went there.
Yeah. And so but I just remember thinking how ironic it was, right? Like, first of all, I didn't have any idea that they even were going to play a video or put a clip, but just how ironic it was. Like, I don't want to say, like, I wasn't picked on per se, but I was just like much more of an outcast. I just kind of did my own thing, and definitely didn't feel well liked. Let's put it that way. And so I just remember that just showed me so much about the world. That moment, I think I was like in my late 20s maybe, and it was so interesting that I'm sitting there watching this, going, "This is like all these people who I was so scared to go see, and they've made this video and they've surrounded it around, I don't want to call it monetary success, but it was monetary success, but it was like the most visible success.
Right.
And it also really defined me on like how shallow people are. Like
Absolutely.
it hit me just because they all came from good families. Some of them like some of the wealthiest in the world, and yet like they surrounded because this was the public image, and it just
Everyone loves a winner.
right.
But when the
But when
things in the
things
shitter,
oh yeah,
like your company at
Yes.
Akamai lost 99.987% of its market value,
so I was going to come
it
back.
gets very thin in that air. Not
It
everyone
gets
loves you
very-
anymore.
So
man,
I was waiting, but I was going to come to that because you have a
I'm
30.
jumping ahead. We can go back.
No, I like it. It's perfect. It's
It's good,
perfect.
it's good.
You have a $35 billion company.
Yeah.
You're on top of the world. And,
Yeah.
and I remember, I mean, Akamai was the shit. It was like,
Yeah.
Yes.
you talked about the internet, you didn't talk about it without Akamai.
Yeah.
And, I had kind of the same in the movie business. And then, as you said, you guys lost 99% of your market value.
Right.
And
the stock went from 35 billion down to 56 million.
yes. So,
Our company's value.
yeah. So that's like
That's not
36,
good.
No.
36 million to 50 million, not good. But,
Yeah.
so what did you take from that? And what's like the lesson? Because obviously you bounced right back,
Yeah.
and you went off and started even more successful ventures.
Right.
So, which is the sign of I'll say there's two paths. Some people say, oh shit, I failed and walk away. And that is a failure.
Yeah.
Or other people say, I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to pick my ass up. I'm going to go do something again. And I'm not going to make the same mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously did the latter. But like, can you go into that moment and kind of talk about what you were feeling, what you were going through? Because
Yeah.
people are going through their own struggles. Maybe it's not 50
Right.
billion to 50 million, but they have
Yeah.
their own. It could be a restaurant they closed. It could be they're struggling with a small business, and
Right.
this helps those people.
But I think I want to backtrack a little bit so
Yeah.
you can get into the mindset. 'Cause
Please
it's
do.
Not
That's what I
just,
want to.
it's not just, we started this company, I think on August 20th, 1998.
Okay.
We went public on October 29th, 1999. 458 days later,
That's
our
crazy.
company, when the stock market closed that day, was worth $14.4 billion.
That's so crazy.
It was a world record, and it's neither good or bad world record,
Yeah.
but it's never happened before. It's probably never going to happen again.
No.
So I had left the company, was living in a small apartment next to the Jack in the Box, right? And I used to measure the days away from when we were going public by the amount of shampoo in my shampoo bottle. So I said, when this thing is done, and I measure the shampoo, just don't think about it every day. Don't obsess, because I just don't know. And I knew what the company was worth. Our company in the last round of funding, our Series D and E. So for those people who don't know, each round of funding has a letter, the Series
Yeah.
A. It used to be as the first round.
Yeah.
There's seed and pre-seed.
Yeah.
But it was A, B, C, D, and E. So we had 5 rounds of funding. Cisco and Microsoft were the last 2 rounds of investors, 1.4 billion and 1.6 billion. Now I had left the company, but I knew how many shares I owned. So, you're calculating the math, and
Yeah.
the math was I'm going to make,
Yeah.
Billions of
$50 or
dollars.
$60 million.
Yeah.
I mean, at that price, it was actually a little more than that, maybe $80 million,
Yeah.
something like that.
At $1 billion.
Yeah.
Which is at like $1.6 billion,
Yeah.
something. It was somewhere in that range, but it wasn't real.
Right.
So all I kept thinking is, don't get hit by a car. Watch the crosswalk, drive safely, and just look at that shampoo bottle as you're pouring that shampoo.
Look at the shampoo bottle.
That's a good one.
And so I remember I left the company, and I went with my wife at the time, Laura, and we went to our broker's office at DLJ, because I'm not there to celebrate, and that was kind of sad for me, but it was a big day. All right, here we go. We're going to see what this thing is worth. But I remember the stock shooting up.
It's like
And I remember it went
$500
from the first range was like 18 to 20, and then they raised it 24 to 26, and the company went public at $28 a share. And it closed at $144 a share that day. 144, something like that. Our company was worth $14.4 billion that day.
Wow.
And I remember, at least on paper, I was worth hundreds of millions of
Yeah, I
dollars.
was going to say, that's like $500 million.
And I'm sitting there thinking, I remember my ex-wife, who's a great person, we're still good friends to this day, saying, "Oh my God, we got to give some of this back." Are you fucking joking?
That is a good person. You got to give some of this back.
We're not giving any of this back. What are you talking about? And in the days ensuing after that, from October 29th, 1999, to the last trading day, December 31st, 1999, our stock just continued to increase. It was worth $35 billion. At that point, at least for a day, I was.
Were you locked up?
Oh yeah, you're totally locked up. You're locked up for a long time. So I had 5 more months after this, and for at least a day, I'm worth $1 billion on paper. And I remember being back in New York with 4 private wealth teams. I'm going in and I'm meeting the CEOs of these firms like Merrill Lynch, by the way, and they hate me because here I am, this young kid. I made all this money again on paper. We'll talk about the paper wealth.
Yeah.
And real wealth, because there's only one entry that matters, and that's cash in bank.
Cash in the bank.
Cash in bank. The paper wealth doesn't pay your rent or buy a house or any of this stuff. But I remember walking on the trading floors, big open floors with all the traders. And I remember it getting very quiet in the room where there's hundreds of people, and there's a guy walking through and people pointing because they knew our company. They were trading. They were trading the stock. Someone said, "Oh, one of the founders is coming in today." And then they see me walking the floor with the CEO of Merrill Lynch, and it was bizarre. It was so weird. And I remember getting back to my hotel room thinking, this is insane. Right. And the next week, I got a call from Robin Newstein, who I was friends with. I had met through the tech world. She was the chief of staff at Goldman Sachs. And we were having this conversation, and I said something about money. And I said, "Robin, this isn't real. I'm still living next to the Jack in the Box. I drive an Acura Integra. It's not real, and I have no money. I was not making a salary at that point. I left." And she says, "Randy, it's real." And at that moment, it kind of hit me, and it wasn't real until
5 months later.
I sold some stock. And I remember just calling the broker, "Hey, sell some stock." I mean, this was even a crazy time. I talk about the mortgage bubble, and we can talk about that in a minute. But, these brokers were loaning me money to buy a house with no recourse, because when you get money from a venture firm, it says when you go public, you cannot pledge your stock. It's a contractual agreement that you cannot pledge your stock. So there's no collateral. So they lend me money for our house, which you've seen. And it was a nice house. So I've got this house. It's a collateral-free loan. But I remember when the lockup
came
off,
not just a nice house, a beautiful house.
I was lucky. My first house was my dream house. I'm so lucky and grateful for that. By the way, there isn't a day that goes by today that I don't drive out my long driveway. It has a gate and say, "I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful to live here, coming from where I came from."
You have such impeccable taste. I have to say, your house it's an art piece.
Well, thank you. Like your parents, we collect a lot of art. But so just going back to the mindset, Robin said it's real. But I remember I called the broker and I said, "We're going to sell some stock." I said, "How much do you want to sell?" I said, $5 million. Okay, 1 second. Hit return. Okay, what's next? I said, No. I want to pay out my house. I want to pay out my house. And the crazy thing is, the stock was trading up and down, $50 a share, $30 a share, up or down, and the swings in your paper net worth is going, up 20 million, down 70
That was when
million.
everybody decided to become a day trader too. I remember
my God.
everybody quit their jobs and said, "We're day trading." So the swings were just going wild.
My God, my mom, who knows nothing about finance, watches CNBC. "You got to buy Intel. You got to buy Intel."
I remember
Mom,
those
you
days.
know nothing about Intel. Everyone's buying it. And it's like, in our stock too, everyone wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
Everyone that either knew me or knew of me wanted a part of this. And I just said, don't. I said, I don't comment on the stock. I have no prediction on the stock.
Yeah.
Don't buy the stock because you know me or because my family has shares. Don't do any of that. And of course, most of those people lost money. Right? I mean, our stock got it got crushed.
And then
it should have gotten crushed.
And then
we
they blame you.
went public just on $3.2 million of GAAP revenue at the end of 1999. Our company is worth $35 billion.
Oh my gosh.
That is fucking insanity.
What is that, 100,000x?
But
yeah.
do the math. Someone do the math. But it's so you're on this high, right, for a few years, and everyone loves you. And I can tell you some funny stories about this producer who you know very well, who loved me and came up to my table at Toscana. Hey, Randy. I mean, his friends had put money and made all this money. And then when our stock was at 70 cents, I remember rolling up to the St. Regis Aspen, and I get out of the car. I said, hey, Steve. What? Randy Kaplan. Huh? Who? What?
Yeah, like
the same guy had come over and his friends had invested.
But his name's not Steve, right? Is his name Steve? Because I think I know who it is.
Yeah, no, we're not going to. Theoretically, his name is Steve.
Does it start with a B?
We're just going to leave it. We're just going to leave it.
I can guess. It starts with a B because you're defining someone I know so well.
We're just going to leave it. But it's so the mindset of when the stock market, when the tech market created in 2002.
Yep.
You still hold shares. You know, I'm a founder. I have shares today.
Yep.
But you think, oh my God, I could have sold all my shares at $240 a share.
Yeah, you couldn't have though.
And then it goes down, and it's like you're immature too much to know. Just sell everything. Like that's hundreds of millions of dollars. You're set forever. Call it a day and move on. Right? So you learn, you know, one of the things that I learned in that day is don't get greedy. Take your wins and live to fight another day. But you asked me, back to your question, how do you feel? You know, you feel like fucking shit when your stock is trading at $56 or 56 cents per share, right? Everyone loves you when your stock is worth $35 billion. I remember going to a dinner with Goldman Sachs and all the traders and nice restaurant, and I don't drink wine. They're drinking wine. My ex-wife is drinking wine. Get in the car with Laura, and she said, well, what'd you think of the dinner? I said, people are not my fucking friends.
Yeah.
I got enough friends. I'm keeping my friends. I'm not changing who I am. Not that I didn't make mistakes along the way, because I did. But I don't need any new friends. And it's hard to make friends with all that wealth, all these new people coming and calling and wanting to go out to dinner.
That's a lot of wisdom for someone that age, because I made the mistake. When I had that, I did make new friends, and I believed they were my friends.
But that's your business, though, right? Your business is relationship with actors, producers, money people, studio heads,
athletes.
Oh my God, agents, right?
Yep.
Oh, I love you. I love you. You're the greatest. Yeah, your movie fucking sucks. Oh, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, right?
Oh no, it was. We were just talking about this. I was like, I wish I had the, you know, like Caesar did, the guy walking around saying, "Remember, thou art mortal," because you know, you can't make a mistake, and they're kissing your ass. And they were all my best friends.
Yeah.
You know, until you can't offer them something.
Yeah. By then, I had my own investment firm, Jump Investors. I started it. I was getting all these deals. So one of the good things that comes of some notoriety and having the credential of being a founder of a very well-known, successful blue chip company is people want you in their deals.
Absolutely.
Right? They want to say the co-founder of this company or that company. Gives them credibility. So we got investment deals based on that status, and we had some good ones in the mix there. So of course we lost the first few, and again, you could bury your head in the sand and say, God, I've lost my first 4 deals and don't know what I'm doing. And
no, that's
but
the game.
You know, we invested in Google, Seagate. We had a bunch of wins there that worked out, that gave me the confidence to keep pouring money into the tech business. But eventually, when that tech market crashed, I said, holy shit, I got way too much money tied up in
tech.
tech. Diversify, which
So
is
you
when
have-
I really started to
You have to
diversify.
pivot.
Pivot.
So pivoting is very important. I consider myself a master pivoter because like growing up myself, I grew up in a decent neighborhood, but we didn't call them bullies, but we had bullies. And so, I'm reflecting on how where you started with just your mother, yourself, and what you went through, but then that's what make you such a shark. That's what make you able to overcome all of this adversity. And I could see that you've become a master pivoter, and you've been able to look at a situation and you can change your seat very quick. Going from this big amount of money to this amount of money and selling. Your life change, but I think you're a master pivoter, and I know you kind of was going into that, but what's your thoughts on your ability to be able to pivot in any situation?
Yeah. I mean, number one, it's very hard to do,
It is.
right? And number two, I think most people I know fear failure. And you can look at it two different ways. I think fear of failure is a great motivator, and it motivates me every day. People say, well, you're successful, you've done okay.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a day that I wake up, I've got all my companies, I've got Sandy for my properties, real estate company.
Yeah.
Fear of failure is a real driver.
It's a real driver, but I've changed careers a number of times. I was a very unsuccessful lawyer, worked at Sun America, investment banking job, changed careers to a tech guy, entrepreneur.
That's pivoting.
Pivot. These are all
pivots.
pivoting. To your point. Then I became an investment professional, managing my own capital, learning how to manage my own capital, and then became a real estate entrepreneur with my own real estate company. Became a podcast entrepreneur late in the game, thinking, shit, am I going to fail? Can I compete with all these people?
Yeah, but you're never too late.
Never too late.
Because you're a student, right? We're all students. And we talked about that earlier, mentors needing mentors. Coaches need coaches.
Yeah.
And throughout your whole life, like you need someone that has done it before, or you don't move forward. Like being a student, like a continual learner allows you to pivot, re-create yourself. I was talking to one of my point guards this morning in New York. He was working with this large hedge fund. Total success. This guy was an amazing basketball player. And what I've learned, we all are athletes at some point. And people that have experience with athletes or fine arts, they always can tap into that grit of like, when it's time to exit, it's time to show up. Like, and so, we were talking about the fear. He called me this morning, like earlier, Coach, I want to talk to you. He said, man, I think I'm going to step away from this hedge. I was like, man, you work hard to get there. Then I was very conscious about what I was saying. I had to think about it because he was like, no, I kind of want to step away, and I want to give myself a chance to create what I'm thinking. And right then I was I said, go for it. Because he was able to feel the fear. And you need your mentor to say, go.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about money. He was like, oh, I put money up, da. I was like, no. You just did something that like 75 to 80% of people in life, because one of my biggest fears growing up is you being 45, 50 years old and you see men that we grew up watching and they were stuck doing the same shit every day. And they were just afraid to pivot.
Yeah.
Just afraid.
We use the man in the arena as our life quote.
Yes.
And, the essence of it is that it's better to have at best know the taste of success, and at worst know the feeling of defeat than to be, as Roosevelt says, the cold and timid soul who neither knows victory nor defeat.
Yeah.
And so
I love that.
It's what I live by. Man in the arena has been my motto. And it starts out with, it's not the critic who counts, it's the man in the arena. And, who's marred in sweat, blood, and tears, who errs and comes up short time and time again. And that's like, you're kind of the epitome of that. And that's when he says you're master pivoter. I've kind of lived a similar life. But I think for so many people, fear is what holds them back. Fear of leaving that job and starting that idea. fear of failing. Like you said it, that the fear of failing holds so many people in this world back. You know what I mean? It's like, and I tell a lot of people, especially when they're not married and they have kids, you know, that are like, I want to go do this, but I'm like, you only have you right now.
Yeah, just go.
Like I literally will say, like, do you think if worse came to worse, could you live in an apartment? Yes. Could you eat pizza? Yes. Okay, go now, do it.
Low opportunity cost.
Yeah, like go do it right now because you don't know if you'll be able to do it again in the future. And
Right.
I encourage so many, you know, people, maybe not even that young, they could be in their 30s and they still don't have that family or whatever. They just have themselves. Um, I remember starting over multiple times. I remember finding $20 in the couch after starting over and going, oh, I can get pizza today. Like, you know,
I have a coaching business that's very active, and people reach out to me on social media. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and these are successful people for the most part who want to go out and do something else. And ultimately, when you pull away all the leaves and all the extra stuff on the outside, they need someone to tell them to go do it. They need a mentor. They need someone to actually run through with them on paper, get the anxiety peeled away, and to prepare a plan for what they're doing. And I teach a lot about preparation.
That's
Extreme preparation is a book that I'm writing, is preparing more than rest of people in the room, being the most prepared person in the room. But a lot of that prep on the coaching side stems from giving somebody the confidence and encouragement to go do something. It's like you said,
I do it every day.
what do you got to lose?
I do it every
so
day.
you guys do somewhat of the same thing because
Every
Chris
day.
coaches not just the best, you know, it's like when you're the best, who do you go to in the NBA? You go to Chris.
come here.
And then also Chris does life coaching outside of just the NBA. So you guys share that.
We talk about just win, and then it's like what is important now, and my term that I built around, I'm building a whole platform around it, is mental fitness. And so the same way we look at the exterior of being fit and where you take care of your body and things like that, I believe that Dwayne said it earlier. We talked about heart to head. This is the separation between everyone because we all have the same limbs. You know, some guys may be really taller. It's only a few people, or some guys are really smart. But at the end of the day, if you become mentally fit, you start to get emotional intelligence, where now you can sit down and you cannot ride anyone else's roller coaster. And I'll tell a guy really quick, don't get on his roller coaster. What? You almost got on his roller coaster. What about yours? And when you can take life and you can climb it, you know, you first go on a roller coaster, it's setting you up for that drop. So when you get in there, when you drop, what I want athletes to do is to drop here and not here. And that's the same thing in life. And so trying to create these new 2024 models of mental endurance, mental fitness, mental flexibility, your ability to pivot. These things sit in my brain, and I've created a pyramid chart, just like Dr. Wooden did for basketball. So where it can sit in your office, and you know, I just completed it. And so for me, when I'm looking, I'm like, you know, our brain is so important. This guy's a genius.
Thank you.
He's a genius. The way he sees things. And so one of the big ways that I've learned as a coach, as a teacher, mentor, is I don't try to tell someone the way I see it. I go get behind them. I want to see what they see. And when you learn to see what other people see, then you can help them along their journey. It's kind of crazy how I do it. I changed my seat. I changed my seat, and now I'm trying to see your vision, how you see life. Most coaches try to tell you the way they see life. I don't want to I want to take my experiences and develop you, but I want to see what you see. And it connects me with the student to where now I can help them go.
The first part about my coaching is getting a set of priorities and goals for people.
Yep.
It's in their head for the most part,
It's all
right?
here.
They don't actually write it down. I'm very big on writing down. I have a
So this
personal
is
business plan.
because it's important for the audience, if you want to know, like you're getting more or less free advice from one of the best coaches.
Right here.
Step one.
Step one is
Write it down.
step one is to write your goals down, right? So I'm coaching this doctor in Grand Rapids, pediatric dentist. He's working for the main doctor, is making $540,000 a year. And he listened to my podcast. He coached me. This guy is a international violinist from Brazil at 14, touring the world.
Wow.
Went to Yale on a full ride, Harvard Medical School on a full ride,
Okay.
taught
Sure.
dental school
Sure.
on a full ride. And he's asking me, the first thing I got is, maybe he should be coaching me.
Yeah, it's like
That's the first thing I thought.
like, wow.
But we got on the phone, and he wanted to leave his practice, have a partner, and who he knew really well. Knew the partner really, really well. They were close friends. And when we peeled away the onion, I said, how many times have you been to your house? How many times have you met your kids?
Yeah.
How many times have the wives met? And it was a goose on all of those. So I said, you don't
know.
really know them at all. And having partners is a very big decision at the beginning, and you really need to figure out. And even the best of friends, sometimes, I mean, we've all seen it. The friends get into fights, and then they never talk again.
Right.
The guy is family guy. He's got 2 kids. He's got 3 startups. Said, let's do the math. How many hours do you want to spend in a week working? And how many do you want to spend with your family and kids? And I said, what's the ranking? What's is money the most important? Yeah. Is being a good dad the most important? Is living in Grand Rapids? Is having your own business? And we really went through everything. I gave him a week to come back. What are your goals? He comes back with the goals. Then we started saying, okay, here's what he wants to do with the business, that portion of the week. You have a finite amount of time in a week to spend on things.
Yeah.
It's hours, 24 in a day. And I said, how many do you want to sleep? Yeah. Because if he says 7, there's an extra hour as opposed to 8, and vice versa. Do you want to work on Saturdays and Sundays? So the short of it was, his medical practice was the first thing he wanted to do. And I said, all right, so do you need the partner? I said, you really don't need the partner. And you don't know him that well. You want the confidence,
security
of doing it with somebody else to rub off your anxiety on one another. Let's go do this together. I said, you don't need it. You're making a mistake. You're giving away 50% of the profits. And I basically gave him the confidence to go do it. And after his first year, he did $1.6 million in revenue.
Wow.
He owns it himself. These practices are valued at 5x the revenue. Yeah. And then in the startups, I tweaked one, which helped them. I killed 2, which were never going to work. And when people come to me, probably like you,
it's huge.
I mean,
killing
deals that are never going to work is as important as helping deals that do work. People don't understand that, by the way.
Because you waste all this time.
It's like hoarding.
People don't understand that, by the way. That's a form, because you can't measure it, right? There's nothing that says Randy Kaplan prevented me from wasting $5 million in 5 years of my life on a thing that didn't work. But you can measure things that do work. And in this case, it's made me very happy. He's my star coaching client. And he said, and it started with a plan. It started with writing our goals down, his goals down. And then me, like you, looking through his lens. Because I got 5 kids.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been very lucky to make money at a young age where I could come home for dinner every night.
That's his thing.
That's my thing.
And my family's the most important thing to me in the world. And it was to him as well. So making a plan and writing your goals down is a way to reduce anxiety. Preparing will increase the odds of success exponentially. And it's, the coaching, I know, fires you up.
Yeah.
And it fires me up. When you can make a difference in people's lives.
When you talk about planning, I probably take it to the extreme. I start normally right after Thanksgiving every year for 30 days. And what I do is I start by subtracting. I figure out if I'm going into the next year with you, if I'm not going to the next year, and I subtract. So I subtract quick because I believe less is more. Because I want winner circles. Like one of my best friends just left. Winner. So he know everything that we doing. It's winner. He's a winner. You're a winner. Like the winner circle. I start in November, like 26. I start with like a diagram, and I'll start with me in the middle, and I'll start writing these. I actually have it in my phone, so I keep it with me everywhere I go. And so I write these branches of bubble. So like I got Ryan's name and I got failure. Boom. So before I went to Japan, we were talking about it, and in anticipation, I told Dwayne, I want to work with Ryan. Then I told Melissa, I was like, he got it. You know, because you're always looking for someone you can collab with, and then he's in a different world. I'm in a different world. I could have signed plenty of big deals in my world. I'm talking about winning. Like, we're talking about the mindset. It ain't about sports, but sports tie in and things like that. And so planning is very critical. And so planning to me is about details, it's about thought process, and it's about subtracting. Like, you subtracted 2 businesses. That's why he's successful. Because time is the only thing we don't get back.
Can't get it back.
Well, I
There's
love
no
as
way.
a step 2, because I've never thought of it this way, you know, and as Chris knows, and anybody who knows me, like, you know, I really wasn't until I had kids a little bit later in life. I was 39, and it kind of coincided with the relativity hostile takeover, and then I got it back, and then I realized I don't want this back. Like, I was traveling 280 days a year,
Yeah.
and didn't have any time for anything else. And I want to be a family guy. Like, that's the most important thing. And I actually didn't sit down and write that down, but it just hit me like, this is what I've always wanted, is to be a father. And so I was like, I'm going to be home for dinner every night. I'm not doing this. And changing my whole life up. But if I had ever sat down and had someone say to me, okay, you got 24 hours in a day. How many hours are you going to sleep? I've never actually thought about it this way, right? And I like to sleep 8 hours. Okay, so now I've got 16 left. How many of those hours are you with your kids? I'd be like, I'm with my kids from 5:30 on, no matter what, every day. And I'm with them from when they wake up till I drop them off at school at 8 o'clock. So then I'm like, okay, so what does that leave me right now if I was doing this, right? Okay, so that leaves me 7 hours in a day. Then you ask me if I want to work weekends, right? Well, for me, I'd say I have my kids every other weekend. I'll work the weekends I don't, right? But when I have them, I don't want to work. I want to be with them. And I can actually put into that box, this is how much time I have for work. And by the way, out of that, I need to do my meditation.
Yes.
Here's how long. I need to do my, whatever, my workout, my infrared. I play tennis. Like, and you start subtracting all that out, and you're right. You can literally define it and then decide, how do you fit your business plan into that?
Yes.
And I've never thought about that until you said that.
That's how you do it. I got it down to the seconds. I started with seconds, 60 seconds.
I never,
in a minute,
until you guys said this, ever.
86,000 seconds. Like, I know it to the T. I'm counting it. Because the one thing I know, you cannot get back time back.
No.
Yeah.
First thing I said, I think I got 7, 8
Well,
guys.
until we figure out how to cross the Einstein-Rosenfeld bridge. That
That's
we
why
can.
Dwayne want that pill.
Yeah, the
The
Limitless pill.
the
I made this
Limitless
movie
pill.
called Limitless. I don't know if you ever saw it.
What's it called?
Limitless with Bradley Cooper.
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, you got to watch it.
He takes this.
Love Bradley Cooper, by the way.
Yes.
He
It's-
took a.
If you're watching Bradley, I want you on my show.
It was the first time, like, and to me, I'm like, wow, this makes so much sense. I kind of done it indirectly, but you know how much time I would have saved if actually someone said, can you sit down and write, how many hours do you want to sleep? When do you want to spend time with your kids? How many hours do you have to do these other things, and what's left? And then, do you have time to do this thing you're talking about?
Now, it's not a rigid schedule. If you're doing a deal, obviously,
different.
like the 9 hours is up. Hey, man, I'm out.
Right.
No.
I mean, it doesn't work that way, right?
You'll complete the time.
No,
But, yeah.
he knows. I just closed the deal, and
You
I
just
spent
closed it,
36 days. I didn't go to sleep
Yeah.
for 36 days, like, and then I just collapsed. But that's one deal in a year,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right.
But when you're setting a lifestyle, right, a deal's a little different. You know, if you're a deal junkie / entrepreneur, you know, whatever, like, it seems like you are too. Like, yes, we move things around, and that's, I'll call it, part of the fluidity of being an entrepreneur. But in an everyday life, like, I couldn't do a job. I've been asked to go back and run the studio, and I was like, there's 0 chance I can do it. I know what that requires. That requires me being on a plane at least 200 days a year. That requires me working, having 2 dinners. I don't even go to 1 dinner. Like,
Yeah.
I won't go to events. I don't, like, ever go. and I'll go to dinner with my family or my friends, and that's it. Like, but had someone told me, make this, let's say, in my late 40s, when I was coming out of the studio days and trying to figure out what am I doing next, if I had had that advice, it would have saved me a lot of time.
It's great advice.
You got to do it. I'm writing a book right now.
What's it
Extreme
called?
preparation. Extreme preparation.
Extreme preparation. So what's I love okay, and I'm loving this, by the way, because we're getting like
It's so many
hardcore
good
concrete.
tips,
So I love the, the first and foremost, like writing down, your business plan and your kind of what it is you want to do, and and kind of the making sure you know the person you're going into business with, and the best way to do that is how many times have they been in your house? Have you met their family? How many times have they been with your family? Like, because that's the only way you get to know someone is so. I mean, you can say it at the end of the day, but I always say going in, taking a business partner is like getting married. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, it's pretty much the same thing, except you have a guaranteed prenup. Pretty much, that's about it. And but then this concept of you only have so much time in the day. Figure out your priorities, what's important, back your time out of those priorities, and then figure out if you can achieve that goal, right? So what's next from there? What would you give as sorry if I'm stealing your coaching, telling the whole world, but this is so good.
I think self-reflection is very important. And I think a lot of people don't do it. I think a lot of successful people don't do it. And I think people at the beginning or mid-level of their career. So part of my coaching is name the 5 things most important to you in your next job. We just talked about a few of those. Name the 5 things that are least important to you in your next job.
Interesting.
What are the 5 things you're best at? What are the 5 things you're worst at? What are your 5 dream jobs? And what are the 5 jobs that would be the worst jobs you could ever have? And I tell people, go back, we're going to talk in a week. This should take you 10 to 20 hours to do this exercise.
That's a lot of work, I was going to say.
It's a lot of work. Because you can knee jerk it.
No, but you got to think hard.
You got to think. I mean, you're revising these lists.
Yeah.
I mean, money is usually number 1 for younger people, right? Some of them talk about learning experience, opportunities for promotion, location,
yep.
All kinds of things, but you really have to put it down on paper, and people really don't understand what their priorities are until they sort through and write it down. And here, this kind of the rubric here kind of helps eliminate certain things and helps put together certain things as well.
Well, what you're doing is, being a student of business plans myself, is you're forcing a person to create a life business plan.
Yeah.
That's around their emotion, around their mentality, around their needs, around their desires, around that, it's not too dissimilar from, I'm starting a company, I need to write everything from, how's it going to financially work? How's it structurally going to work? How's it operationally going to work?
Right.
And you're kind of doing that for a person, right? You're writing their life business plan.
It's the blueprint. And, for people that are watching today, a lot easier, like even going through that, people will get stuck writing down the list, right? So what I do, and what I was telling you, I either speak it or I just freelance write. And so I do it without thought. So I call it emptying. So I empty the brain. Because a lot of times we carry, us being thinkers, being a thinker, you carry these mental bricks, right? And you can't really see mental bricks. So when you show up in a room, nobody knows how much you're carrying. And I talk to athletes about this all the time, about how to empty their mental bricks before it becomes too much. And so your mental bricks are there. So even when trying to achieve and writing those things, you have to just jot. You don't look at spelling errors. You don't look at commas. You don't look at
free flow.
Yes. Like you just go in and maybe put on a camera, and that's what Natasha and I have been talking about and working on. Like for me, so I'm on my new book that I'm going to write. I'm going to write it differently. I'm just going to put a camera up.
You're going to speak it.
I'm going to speak it because I normally been doing it verbally. And then she was like, I look at your YouTube. I have a very big YouTube. She was like, you got a book right here. You've done all of these podcasts. And I was like, you're a genius. Last week, she called me. She was like, yo, I already look like you already have a book. And I was like, well, I want to write a book like this. I don't want a self-help book. I want something about real experiences, about preparations, about how to overcome adversity. I want to talk about the hard things that I've seen or that I've stole. So that's the one thing I've really done over like even almost a 20-year period dealing with the top athletes in the world and having the best. I said, why are you a master teacher? I said, because I've collected so much data. I'm always studying people, the way they walk, the way they talk, the mannerisms, the movement, the information, and I steal it to share. So I'm always sharing. So I feel like a great teacher like yourself is always sharing, and that's why people that are watching can come and try to sign up with your class and go through the process.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but how do you sign up for your class? Like,
there is no class; it's just one-on-one coaching right now. We're developing classes on this.
Are you going to do like
just one-on-one coaching?
Is it going to become like a master class?
It will become a master class.
It's just something that everybody could.
That's what I have. I have it, and I believe you're supposed to share. So the more you share, the more you become a master of it. You can't be a master of something and not share it.
One of my greatest passions in life, my kids and family are number one. My number two is giving back.
Yeah.
And there are ways to give back, right? It's not about money. It helps if you want to give, you can make a difference. It's about bringing people opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have. And it's about inspiring, motivating people, which is my calling in life. I mean, we can talk about, you've had stuff in business and
I'm right there with you.
That's me.
I mean,
all
DNA. DNA.
This is why we connected, because we both were like, if you asked us what's the first thing on our list, helping people.
Yeah.
That's why we have the show.
Right. I'm sure it's your show, and it's awesome, by the way, so congrats on the start of your show. As you'll see, and this has happened to me 3 times, and it's embarrassing, and I get tears flowing, but people coming up to you crying, tearful that you changed their life. It is honestly so rewarding. I remember the first time, and I didn't know what to say.
Right.
She was crying, and I started to tear up, and I couldn't speak.
It just happened to me, I think 2 days ago, and someone walked up and said, I got fired from my job, and I have no money in the bank. And I was just sitting there, and I didn't know what to think or feel. And I listened to, it was one of our episodes, and literally she just like kind of broke down and was like, it reset me and gave me a giant hug. And I hugged her back, and I was just like, we're doing it. I mean, we're actually making a difference. And even if it touches just a couple people, like, I used to, when I had the means, I used to give a lot of dollars to charity and a lot of my time. And now between family and, not a Forbes guy anymore, I can do it more with my words and with my giving and my helping. And so I actually believe in the universe. I do believe it through quantum entanglement, which a whole other thing we can go to, that the more you give out there, that it's a real thing. It's not just like a, philosophical, give, you get. There legitimately is a scientific correlation between giving and what comes back to you. And as you know, we're both Jewish, and we go to the same temple. What's up, Rabbi Leader?
Love you, Steve. You're the best.
We love you. But in Judaism, as you know, the most important thing you can give is charity. But then there's different levels of charity.
I was just going to go there, and I was going to see how deep are you going here?
I mean,
seven levels.
But the highest in the most basic experience, or most basic explanation, is to give something to someone that will set them kind of forever on their path to be self-sufficient without needing anything more, but without them ever knowing, without anybody ever knowing.
Give anonymously and without any expectation of getting anything back in return is the highest form of charity in the Jewish religion.
Anonymously, without any expectation, and in a way that it's like, give them the cow, not the milk, right? And show them how to breed cows, but don't ever let them know you did it. And I do believe that you don't have to have the expectation of it. Just doing that, it comes back. I've seen it. Like, it always comes back. And I see it with everyone in my life. The people who, I mean, there's people who say they give,
Right.
you know, and yes, there's a lot of people with money that write big checks. And frankly, like I used to exploit that because I did a lot of, you know, I was honored by a lot of different groups, and I knew how to, I would get on stage and I knew that one guy would want to big dick the other, and I'd call them out, and I could raise. I remember I was honored by ADL one year, the Anti-Defamation League, and Spielberg was the year before. And I got on stage and I'm like, we're going to beat what Spielberg raised on stage last year. And everybody's like, it's like, no, we're going to do it. And I knew exactly who was on the other side of the list. And I knew that I could get, if that guy was going to give, then that guy was going to get bigger. And it's all for them was just about, they're in the room, they got to prove themselves. But I exploited that 100%. But that in the Jewish religion isn't really charity, because they're doing it to prove something, which fine, great. We can use it to raise money, help people. But the ultimate form of giving, and I try and practice this every day, is helping. Don't expect it back. People don't even know. And I think about some of the things that I've done that people don't even know about. And I'm like, back when I had more like, wow, I actually did that. And I have to like remind myself inside. And I feel so good about doing it that that's the best reward you can have.
You know, one of the practices, because I follow that also, I wrote down in December, like December 5th, on my way to Japan, I said, I want to master listening. That's a form of giving.
Master what?
Listening. It's a form of giving, because sometimes people just need to be heard.
Yeah.
And you can give them an opportunity to, you just listen. So my whole thing for 2024 is to become a master listener. And to
a really good one.
really tap in to what other people are saying. Because you have people that listen to respond, and you have people that actually can listen and take information in, and I can choose my response.
I need to learn that more.
One of the most underrated elements of our success is our ability to listen to others. It's an important ingredient of leadership.
Yep.
As an entrepreneur, you got to listen to people. You got to listen to your team, and my team may be smiling right now. At the end of the day, the buck falls and lies with me, and I'll make mistakes, and I'll fall on my sword, and yeah, it is what it is, but I want all the data.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts. And number one, you got to listen to your customers. Because if you're not listening to your customers, it's over.
You have to listen.
It's over.
That was my number one thing this year. I have it. I showed it to we have the winner circle. He's going to be in the winner circle. We'd love to have you in the winner circle with us. So when we do our winner circle stuff, we want you to be a part of it. And me and Ryan are going to have all these different workshops that build winners through showing them how to fail.
Love it.
But listening, I wrote it down. And people are like, wow, you sit more quietly now. But I'm really trying to master listen. When someone says something, it could be total chaos going on. I'll just stop. And I listen.
You know,
and then I can choose my response. Sometimes you don't even need to say anything.
There's also a big difference between listening and being heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also that's a distinction that a lot of people don't think about. Versus I heard you and I understand you.
Yeah. That's how I was formulating, you know, like, wow, Rand is a master pivoter. I'm listening to you. You're talking, and I can feel the reflection of like, wow, if I gave you a situation or something, you can give me back a solution. Like
you got a guy that went from lawyer to tech billionaire to investment
tech what? Tech
multi-hundred millionaire for a minute.
For a minute, it was there.
To have some success in technology.
Yeah,
Let's say it that way.
To tech, to invest, I guess, professional investment advisor, almost investor, to professional podcast motivational speaker, motivational coaching, to real estate, to now, you know, travel industry, you know, expert.
I also made a best-selling coffee table book on my beach drone photos from around the world. It's called Bliss.
That's amazing.
And
do you fly the drone yourself?
Oh yeah, got about 5,000 hours flying my drone, and I take 2 drones with me on vacation, and it's a passion. So here's a story to inspire everybody out there. Who, when you look at odds, don't listen to them if you have a passion, you want to do something.
Yep.
I can't wait.
So Gray Mallon, do you know his work, the photographer?
Yes.
I think his work is amazing. He's a great photographer. He has a book called Beaches, which is a best-selling coffee table book. I have it. And I thought, gosh, his drone photos are beautiful. Helicopter he uses sometimes. You're a helicopter guy.
Helicopter guy, yeah.
I'm afraid of helicopters. We can talk about that some other time.
Yeah.
But I said, people like my photos. Some people love my photos. So I found out his publisher. I called his publisher. Abrams Books. Michael Jacobs is their CEO. I looked him up on LinkedIn. We got his phone number. I sent him an email. Hey, I'm a drone photographer. I gave him some of my background, so I have credibility.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Set the stage.
Which helped. And then just say, hey, I've got these photos. I'm interested in making a book. Are you interested? And he writes back. I think your photos are beautiful, too competitive with Gray's, but thank you. So most people, that'd be the end.
Right.
I view the end as a successful entrepreneur and a dreamer as the beginning.
Yep.
Okay, and this is part of extreme preparation. Step 5 is prepare to persist. Okay, so
this is the most important.
A no is not a no. It's a temporary roadblock to finding a way to success. So I asked him, I said, thank you for the compliment. Do you have 15 minutes on Monday to have a call with me? I'd love to learn more about the book business. Now, there's a few things in that reply that are important. 15 minutes.
Yep. Takes
Not
some
a lot of time. We spent an hour, by the way, which I knew we were going to.
Right.
And 2, you're successful, so you give me some advice.
Yeah, which people love. You just boosted his ego up.
Generally, people like doing that. Now, they're busy, and we can have a whole session on earning that meeting.
Yep.
Okay, which is a whole nother thing. We could talk about that for 2 hours on a different podcast.
Yep.
I got all these LinkedIn. Hey, you got 15 minutes for coffee? No, I don't. Send me a 10-page letter, and like I used to do to people, and then we can have that meeting. So I said to Michael, we have a great conversation. At the end of it, I said, can you introduce me to publishers? He said there's 2. One is Cameron Books, which is a 70-year-old photography imprint that had been passed down 2 generations, super high quality, great company, and another company. I would name it if I could. I don't remember. And I said, will you email intro? He said, no, but you can use my name. I said, okay, so that's not quite as strong, but
it works.
No problem.
Right.
I got this. So I called the first company. They said, okay, interesting. We'll get back to you. Blew me off. Total ghost. Then Chris Gruner at Cameron Books called me back, like your book. And we signed a book contract 3 weeks later. Abrams was the sales force for Cameron Books, interestingly. And in the interim, while we were making my books, Abrams bought Cameron Books.
Oh my gosh.
Which was an interesting,
and it's
ironic, kind of the full circle. But I had people calling me after this, and they saw my book, and I'd send emails to people, hey, I've got a new book, will you buy my book? People said, well, I want to make a cookbook. Who published your book for you? They didn't understand that, no, this was actually an arm's length commercial deal where someone judged the quality of my art and made a book. And I have friends at CAA in the book business. They said, that's fucking outrageous.
Yeah, it doesn't ever happen.
Yeah,
never
happens.
Like, you want to make a book, you're going to call the CEO of a book company and say, make a book. It never happened. But it happened. And I didn't let it die. I sent an email. I had a dream. The dream was 1 in a trillion, and it worked. And today we sold 10,000 copies of my book, Bliss, which is amazing.
That's actually I love that, because there's so many people who are, whether they want to be writers or actors or directors or no matter what it is. I mean, it could be, particularly in that world, where in the creative world, photographers, any kind of a painter, a dancer, any kind of art where things are subjective. And unlike where you go to school and, you get your degree in an MD, you'll probably be a doctor. You get to read a JD, you'll probably be a lawyer. But in that business, there's so many unknowns. And one of the most important things that I can say I've seen, having broken a lot of actors and a lot of directors, and persistence, is you have to have the talent. But if you really believe you have the talent, there's thousands of you that are coming at once, and persistence, like you said, you can't give up at the no, because it's always going to be the no.
Yep.
And I always try to talk about like running water. So what does water do? Why is it the most powerful force? When it hits a wall, it doesn't stop. It keeps going until it finds a hole in that wall, and then it goes around and comes back together, right? And so, that's really what you're saying. And you did it
Persistence is key.
again. I mean, do you know people I know that want to publish a book and have offered them, oh, I have $1 million, I'll pay to publish the book.
Right.
So like, I don't want to, I'm going to waste my time and your money.
Right.
Like
my rich friends call,
Yeah.
two in particular, a woman, very talented chef. She's amazing. I mean, insane, and wanted just,
No, they'll write a check.
Who'd you use?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I have people who've literally called me.
nobody. Myself.
So we did, I've helped one of our athletes, who's a well-known basketball player, wanted to publish children's books. So we helped him get it published. And even that, in the children's world, I saw how hard it was. And I have more people call me.
Yeah.
I have this book or book idea or treatment or picture book. I'm willing to pay whatever it is, a couple $1 million to just get it out. Who can you connect with? I'm like, it doesn't work that way. If they don't like it, first of all, to them, they're big boys. You writing them a couple $1 million check, like they may take your money, they may not, but honestly, like it's not going to move the needle for them. And number two, you're just going to throw your money away, because if they don't believe in the book, it's not going to be in the right spots and it's not going to sell.
Yeah.
And so it's what you do in that is, it should be a lesson for everyone who's watching that has that dream to, like, most important, the first no is just the next step to getting to yes.
It's man, I mean, that's a great, it's follow up and follow through.
Yeah.
Follow up, follow through.
But also you have to have talent. Like you said, you have to know when to tell someone not to do it too.
Do you guys know who the greatest salesperson in history is?
Bill Gates?
Is this by numbers, or is this
The Guinness
is this
Book of
a
World
thing?
Records.
No,
Greatest
no.
salesman ever.
Donald Trump.
No. It's a guy named Joe Girard, who started his career in Detroit as a shoe shine boy and later had jobs as a delivery boy, stove assembler, home building contractor. Thrown out of high school, fired for more than 40 jobs, kicked out of the Army in 97 days. At the age of 35, everyone called him a loser and a complete failure. And at the age of 35, he walked into a car dealership in the great city of Detroit and begged the sales manager to give him a job selling cars. Joe went on to sell a car his first day, his second day, and his third day. He went on to break sales records not only for the city of Detroit, state of Michigan, or the United States. He sold so many cars that the Guinness Book of World Records named him the world's greatest retail salesman for 12 consecutive years.
Holy shit.
How'd he do it? He prepared to persist. And this is part of my coaching, but I'm going to get to the bottom line here. He sent greeting cards to every single customer he'd ever had.
Absolutely.
Every single month. 12 different cards, one a month. He hired someone to draw these cards with celebrating everything from birthdays, anniversaries, every major holiday, everything in between, from Halloween to Groundhog Day, with one simple message.
Which was?
I like you.
Mhm.
And by the end of his career, he was sending out 13,000 greeting cards a month. A typical car salesman back then sold an average of 4 to 5 cars a week. He sold 4.5 cars per day. In his best day, he sold 18 cars. In his best month, he sold 174 cars because he prepared to persist. He knew that if the average customer met him when they were 30 years old, and that person bought or leased a car every
4 or 5 years,
5 years
Yeah.
and drove until they were 70, he had a chance to sell the same customer 8 cars.
That's such a smart, like he played the long game too. That's something that I think our society forgets, is the long game. And by the way, when I was in my 20s, I forgot it too. Like, you're looking at closing this deal now, right? And what I learned the hard way is, this is a long game. In the end, the race is with yourself. But the people around you are all going to be around you. And so you got to remember, like, you know, closing a deal isn't, if the deal you're closing isn't good long-term,
Yeah.
you might be short-term gain for long-term harm. And that's one thing that I always kind of try, and when I'm talking to people about their business, I'm like, listen, you might be able to close this deal and make, it seems like the most money you'll ever make. It's $5 million. But I'll tell you what, you are smart enough that over your career you can make 50, but you close this deal right now, everybody on the other side is not going to work with you again because it's good for you and not good for them. And there's such thing as too good of a deal. And people don't realize that.
Preparing to persist is all about rigorous follow through.
Yep.
It's about flipping defeats upside down. It's about expanding victories into bigger ones.
Absolutely.
Which I love. I love that you're taking that same one and reselling it 8 times.
Yeah. When you think about persistence, I mean, just think about it, Ryan. High school kids, to get them to understand the level of persistence needed when a young man wants a young woman, he's persistent. He's pulling all the tricks out the bag.
It's true.
He's doing.
If you think about it, like, you're right.
That's how you. That's how I would look at it. Like, this is how you illustrate to a young person what persistence look like, because when they want something, they're gonna go get it. And so when I'm talking to athletes,
well, my 8-year-old can tell you about persistence.
Yep. and so when I'm looking at a young person and I'm thinking about, you really don't want this. Because some people come to me and say, man, I want to be an NBA player. No, you don't. Because you're persistent about this. So persistence to prepare, like when you're preparing to be persistent, everyone has that in them.
So it's interesting.
It's the way you pull it out of them. And that's what Rand's doing, which is amazing.
I get the same thing a lot from actors or producers. I can't tell you because I think, I don't know if I've set a record, but I've broken probably 20 A-list actors that before our movies were either completely unknown or, had smaller roles, Bradley being one of them. Limitless was his big breakout hit. But I get to this day, so many people that come and say, I've wanted to be an actor more than anything. Why? Why do you want to be an actor? And if called they're 17, tell me what you've done to act. 98% of the time, maybe 99, what comes out is they don't want to be an actor. They want the life of an actor.
There we go.
They want to be famous. They want to have pictures. They want to have money. They want people to want autographs. But when it comes down to the heart of it, it's not like, well, I just feel connected. I love being a character. Since I was born, I performed. And so few of them, and it's like, actually want it. They think they want it because they want what they think comes with it.
That goes back to the planning exercise that I talked about before. Where does passion fit in your ultimate goal in terms of what you want to be doing? And it begs the question, can you be successful without being passionate at what you do?
Absolutely not. You can make money, but success is not always measured by money.
So it's interesting for me because my passion, which is helicopter flying, like my absolute passion, I have set records, although Guinness said they were putting me in and then just said that they can't, there's no world standard for this, so they couldn't. But originally they did call it today, which is fastest commercial license ever, which I definitely have. Getting your private license is fast. Getting your commercial is really hard because you're legally allowed to go get a job to pay to fly other people. And usually in helicopter flying, because it's all physics and it's not unlike plane flying, there's no, autopilot, they say you have 1 hour in the beginning, 1 hour before your brain just gives up. And so most people can't fly more than an hour a day when they're first learning. And I would get up and I'd fly 6, 7, 8 hours. And I had a house in Maui. I'd go fly to Maui and literally fly with the firefighters in 70 knot winds just to learn. And I would literally.
You wouldn't fly from California to Maui.
Not in a helicopter. I'd go to my house in Maui, and then I'd go fly. My friend owns the company that has all the firefighting contracts there.
Oh, cool.
So I'd go fly with them because it's the hardest place in the world to fly. There's always 50 or 60 knot crosswinds coming around, and you're landing in the most densely populated rainforests at 5,000 feet, where you're like, there's trees everywhere, and the helipad's smaller than this room, and so it's interesting because that was my passion, and everybody was like, you can never make money in helicopters. And I actually bought kind of a helicopter business for, with partners, but bought it to offset the cost so that it was a write-off because of how much I was spending, right? And interested enough, by flukes, it just kind of built where it's like, well, if we add a helicopter, my fixed costs stay the same and my operating costs come down, so I'll lose a little less. And then if we add another one, and then all of a sudden we had this firefighting contract in there, and it was like, okay, so we're fighting fires for California. And then we won because they were my helicopters, so I kept them up very nicely. So all of a sudden it was like we were getting the #1 ratings of all the helicopter companies because I was treating them as mine, but yet they were going out in the field. And then all of a sudden we were getting U.S. forestry contracts, and then we were getting SoCal Edison contracts, and then we were buying another helicopter and another, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I'm making real money from this thing. And it was purely from a passion, but it was completely, so I always tell people, it's interesting that when I look at today, that the business that I think is most stable, because it's government contracts, it's, and it came completely out of a passion and unexpected. And I just followed that passion.
That's crazy. That's great.
Well, listen, you've given us, I don't want to steal all your secrets that you give to your triple VIPs, but I'd like to be one of those triple VIP clients. So I got to figure out how to get that. You have given us such good sound bites and just information for people to take, if any walk of life, of how to really take that next step, no matter what it is that they're doing. Like I said, it could be someone who wants to open a restaurant. It could be someone who's starting a tech company. It could be someone who wants to write a book. And I feel like of all of our episodes, of the one, if you're looking of how do I prepare my thoughts for my next step in life, that people should watch this episode. Yes, because you're hearing it from a person who has built and pivoted in built some of the biggest companies, but also pivoted through 5 different fields and shown success in all of them. And now coaches the best in the world, or, people of how to be the best in the world, that how to be successful, but also how to figure out what you want in that success. And do you really want what you think you want? And I got a lot from today, so I really appreciate it. I hope that we can continue the conversation. Yeah, I want to learn more.
Exactly. Yeah, we can. I want to give one more example.
Please do.
Of an ingredient that I think is important to success, and that is being different than everybody else. Because if you just do what everybody else does, you're going to achieve mediocre results. That's the exact definition of mediocre. So a lot of our viewers on my podcast, In Search of Excellence, are students or young professionals. I get asked all the time, what should I do here or there? And I got a call from my daughter's boyfriend at Wisconsin. It's an amazing kid. I love this kid. Says, I have a job fair tomorrow. What's your advice? And he's listening on my podcast. He's looking for detailed advice. And I said, how many companies are there? How many do you want to meet? 80 companies. I want to meet 14. Okay, well, you're going to Google the people beforehand. I said, well, that's the problem, Randy. We don't have their names. They don't give you the names in advance. I said, all right, well, let's think about how to solve that problem. How can you stand out more than any other person of the 300 or 400 people going there and be different and being #1 prepared of all those people? I said, what's the layout of the room? Give me the physical layout of the room. Is it a rectangle? Is it a circle? Or, how big is it? Are they tables? Do they have signs where they are? So he laid it out. They have signs. I said, do people have name tags? Yes. From 5 to 10 feet away, can you see the names on people's name tags? Yes. Perfect.
Google.
We've got it now. So I said, are you bringing one of those leather folders, 8 by 10 folders with the resumes in there? Yes. I said, okay. Can you put 20 high quality note cards? He doesn't have a lot of money. So I said, get quality note cards. Thin is cheap and weak. Thick is solid and strong. Yeah. Can you fit 20 in there evenly spaced so it doesn't look like a softball in the middle that you can't close it? Yes. All right, you're going to be one of the first ones there. You're going to do a drive-by. You're going to, all 14, you're going to get the names of people. That's going to take you a half an hour, right? We did the math, how long it's going to take you to go around. You're going to go into a corner. You're going to look these people up on LinkedIn. You're going to jot down 3 things about each of those people. You're going to go back. You're going to be the only person out of 300 or 400 people there who knows anything about any of their backgrounds.
That's so amazing.
And they're going to ask you, how did you get this information? And it's the plan itself that's going to give you the home run.
Such a good plan. That's awesome.
But then that's not enough.
It's not enough.
Go for the grand slam.
Which is?
Yep.
So I said, get the note cards and pre-write them in advance. Because you just have to fill in the last sentence. You got to fill in the name. They're all the same. You know, Chris, it was so great meeting you at the Wisconsin Fair, talking about Chris Inc. I appreciate you sharing your insights. I look forward to hearing back from you soon. Andy, 30 minutes you have to go drop off that handwritten thank you note. 30 minutes, that's it. You get all this terrible advice. Oh, send an email thank you note. You know, handwrite the fucking thank you note.
Nobody else
Drop
did that.
it off.
No, not a person.
It was a foregone conclusion. How many interviews did he get?
All of them.
All of them. It was never in doubt. By the
Because
way,
he's probably the only person that dropped off a handwritten note and had any information on
he's
it.
the only person who had both.
By the way, that is so standing out by far is the most important. Differentiating yourself.
And so many of our interns, I think I told you we have a summer program, 36 interns. We have 6,000 applications this year for 36 spots.
Wow.
And it's a teaching internship. And all I hear from...
Which company is this for?
They work at my venture firm. They work on all of our portfolio companies. Work on Sandy. They're going to be working on my show this summer. It's a teaching internship. 8
Can
to
you spell
6.
Sandy for the audience?
Yeah, Sandy is
Sandee.
Sandee. Sandy.com. We've built the world's largest beach database by cataloging more than 100 categories of data for more than 100,000 beaches in 212 countries.
So incredible. I mean, that's like, I don't even know how to comprehend that, but okay.
So thank you. It's a passion. We're going to have a huge exit one day. Company's going great. Our traffic doubled last month. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Doubled in a month.
Things are jamming and revving right now. But back to the interns. Do you know how many of them tell, oh, my daughter goes to Cornell, one of the finest schools in the country. The placement office said you have 48 hours to send a thank you note. I think it's the worst piece of advice I've ever heard.
Yeah.
An hour. And by the way, get the thank you note. And here's something as well, is you're on a Zoom, you're in California, they're in New York. I'm going to send the email. Okay. FedEx, your thank you note.
Right. Handwrite.
FedEx the note. You'll be the only if you FedEx a thank you note, you're going to be the only person in the world who's ever FedEx that person a thank you note. That person's going to remember you forever.
So
they're going to be teaching about you. It's a small world. You never know where they're going to end up. You may, if you get the job right now because of the FedEx, but they're going to be teaching that, telling their boss, you won't believe what this person did. It's memorable forever. Stand out.
It's
be
so good.
different. It's $20. You're spending $20 for a lifetime impression of how great you are, how creative you are, how different you are. And that is so important to my coaching, to overcoming failure. Don't just do what everybody else does.
Stand out.
Be different, stand out. Don't be afraid to stand out. And have the courage to be the only one on an island.
You got to be prepared to be the
Well,
one on the
so the courage, that's where we get back to the anxiety and overcoming it. We say feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yep.
And that's where it all starts with, is taking the step to not be scared and actually doing it to go on the island alone.
And the more you prepare, the less scared you're going to be, and the more effective you're going to become.
The more you're prepared, for sure. And I look at that and go, God, I wish I would have actually had that advice, because a lot of it I just went in, guns blazing. Well, thank you. So, I mean, this is awesome.
This was awesome.
It was a
Right.
real
So good to
pleasure.
see
And,
you.
like, I
Appreciate
really,
you.
Great, thank you.
God, you're awesome, man.
Thank you
So great.
much.
Appreciate you.
much.
you want to do our,
Yeah, we do the outro. Man, great minds think alike. I'm just,
it's much of what you talk about is so much of what we talk about in
yeah,
general. And it's just
great
like,
minds think alike.
and I've learned so much today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's
thank
great.
you.
It's great. It's reassurance that it is different steps and different ways to attack it, but the persistence, the doing the work, the preparing, it'll never go anywhere. Those are ingredients for
Forever.
success.
Forever.
And the success of it is the failure. So you're doing it in regards of what's going to happen on the outcome. This is a part of who you are. You have to show up because, you know, this is big. People that you meet, you normally meet their representative. You never meet them. But eventually, you're going to have to show up.
I think that goes to your whole, have you had dinner with them? How many times have you met their kids? Have you met their wife? Have you, like...
Because you keep meeting a representative, like, you're like, whoa, I want to know you. I don't want to meet the representative.
You're meeting the pitch man.
Meeting the pitch man. And so you have to get a little bit deeper with the self-reflection so that you don't show up as somebody else that you didn't even know you were. That's huge. That offer your self-reflection. So guys, once again, my guy Rand, this has been a great show. We learned so much. Make sure you drop comments below. And if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to this channel today. Also, turn on that post notification so that every time we drop, you're notified and you can share your experience with us. Drop your comments below. We're out.
Including the trolls.
Including the trolls.
We love to answer those.
We love the trolls.
Haters.
The haters.
But we
The
love
more successful you are, the more the haters.
But we actually love to respond to
We
them.
love to respond.
We got one professional one.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
We'll
you
see you
so
soon.
much.
thank you.